How's it going, everybody? Welcome to the Gym Range Podcast. This is episode 6. I'm Karl Heiser, joined by my co-host Alex Cervantes. We were brought to you by Vendetta Sports Media. Be sure to go look at the site, vendettasportsmedia.com. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Hit the bell icon, turn the noties on, all that good stuff. Today we are doing our last, as far as we know, our last conference preview ahead of the season. So we're doing the SEC today. But before we run through the SEC, we are going to talk about some preseason rankings because different analytics sites have started coming out with their preseason rankings. So KenPom released their 2021 metrics, or 2022 metrics rather, a couple weeks ahead of the season. So Alex, give me your thoughts on the new KenPom rankings.
I think it's fairly consistent. I mean, there are certainly some shockers, but overall, check out Karl's article. He just posted it this morning. It'll be on the Twitter. Okay, it's highlighted. Since 2015, every national champion is ranked, I think, in the top 5 in the country in KenPom, in both, just in the holistic rankings. So that's something to keep an eye on. UConn in 2014 was definitely an outlier. I think we all remember that. But Villanova, I think, was a little bit, low. Illinois, although, I mean, they've got a quality squad and they may be better than last year. It pains me to say this, but North Carolina is criminally underrated at 40. Choking up a little there. But they were our preseason ACC champions, and I think they're 6th among ACC teams. So, I mean, Duke at 10, as a fan, I'm happy with that. I do feel like their defensive efficiency will be better this year.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Memphis is lower than I think most people have them in their preseason rankings. So I think that's indicative of something. And Michigan at 2 over Kansas. Interesting, but I'll let you take it away.
Yeah, it is interesting. So the thing is, people are going to come away with this with how could you put this team above this team? But it is, completely dependent on games being played, and no games have been played yet. So, just take these with a grain of salt. But just for to open.
He's usually right.
Yeah, and yeah,
it's usually right.
It's usually right. Yeah, but to open the season, definitely some interesting things to come away with, because it's based on the last couple years of performance plus a couple extra variables with transfers and stuff. So one thing, I don't know, have you looked at Haslametrics at all?
No.
Okay, so the only reason I wanted to bring it up is because where he had so Haslametrics, for those of you who don't know, is another analytics site. And so guess where he had UCLA to open for his preseason rankings? I just want you to guess.
You're smiling.
Yeah.
Guess. I think it's 22nd.
Okay, no, 17, but still 17.
Oh, I wasn't that far off.
Yeah.
That makes you happy, doesn't it?
I mean, it does a little bit, because I don't know, people are starting to get it.
Just let it be known.
Yeah, but and then the one other thing I wanted to say about KenPom is, if you read my article, I go through and just look at so KenPom's been around for around 19 or 20 national champions. And so I wanted to see if they all had anything in common KenPom wise. 17 of the 19 national champions, so 89%, were in the top 20 for both offensive and defensive efficiency. And if you do that for these preseason rankings, there's currently 12 teams that fall within those parameters, and Maryland and Duke are both in there.
You're a terror, yeah.
So I don't
Vendetta
know.
Final Four trip?
I don't know.
Vendetta Final Four trip?
A lot like 2002.
No.
Yeah.
No. 2001.
Yeah. Okay. So that's KenPom. I don't know. Just some interesting things to go look at over there if you're interested. But until the games start, it doesn't really matter a whole ton.
No. Ohio State at 8, though. I forgot to mention that. That was, yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty. That's high.
It's high. It's EJ Liddell and the Kyle Young show.
Yeah. And then,
Anyway,
yeah, I was surprised. I guess, I don't know. You can nitpick, this team over this team, but BYU over North Carolina is very, very interesting to me. Yeah, St.
well,
John's, I think
yeah.
might be a little low at 51. Okay, but yeah, like we can do
Anyway,
this we could do this all day. But let's move into the SEC. We got 14 teams to go through,
yes.
which is more than we've usually done. But for those of you who are with us for the first time, the way Alex and I do this is we rank them individually without seeing the other person's rankings before the show starts. And then we go in reverse order, just based on like the combination of our rankings. So we start with the bottom of the conference and work our way up to whatever sort of our consensus picks are.
Yep.
And so far, the rankings have been pretty similar. Not gonna lie, just to plug the our other conference previews. Yeah,
Today's no different.
Yeah, today is no different.
Today's no different.
Today we're yeah, all that to say, today we are also very similar.
Yep.
But
Oh,
let's kick it off with the number 14 team in the SEC, the Georgia Bulldogs.
basement.
Alex, thoughts?
I'll keep this short because we've done a bad job of like talking about the basement of conferences, and then we're getting through to like the top of the conference. And we don't leave enough time. It's still a rebuilding year for Tom Crean. He's got, just counting the amount of transfers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then I believe 3 freshmen. 10 newbies to a roster is always something that you're a little wearisome of. The leading scorer that is returning is PJ Horn, 8.5 points a game. I mean, it's tough, especially in a conference that I think will be deeper than the Big Ten, and the Big Ten is notoriously college basketball's toughest conference. So it will be so incredibly hard to crank out wins, especially with like Severe Wheeler gone, Katie Johnson gone. You're kind of like microwave offensive go-to guys, and now you're looking at these transfers for someone to step up. And they can definitely score the rock, but it's just, I really don't see them stealing that many wins in conference play. So that's Georgia.
Yeah, I would agree. They bring in Aaron Cook from formerly of Gonzaga, so that's cool, I guess. It's not every day you see like somebody from Gonzaga transfer. I don't know. Yeah, but I mean, even when this team had Anthony Edwards, number 1 overall pick, they were still terrible. Like Georgia has been in the basement for a couple years now, or right around it, and this is probably
no
not
different.
going to be no different. And they're really only bringing back PJ Horn, like he's he's their only returner. So not a great roster as far as the C word continuity goes for Tom Crean. So that's Georgia. Moving on, number 13 is Missouri. So Missouri, like they'll be okay defensively. I think they'll be pretty decent defensively. Offensively, they're going to be unwatchable. It's going to be very, very hard to sit there and stomach their offense because it's just, I don't know. It's the roster just kind of on paper already isn't great. And I think the only way they're really going to be able to steal games is with their defense. But yeah, and they'll beat Georgia, but they don't really have a lot of 3-point shooting. And that, I don't know. I haven't looked at them as far as tempo goes, but overall, just a very uninspiring offense. So it's going to be, Missouri will play people tough just because of what they bring on the defensive side of the ball. But overall, I don't really see them really leveraging that into staying competitive in the conference.
Not much to add. I agree. Georgia versus Missouri, March 5th, 2022. Mark your calendars.
Yeah, must watch.
Must watch game. But I mean, transfer wise, you picked up Amari Davis and Jerron Coleman, who are both good mid-major guards. Coleman averaged 13.8. Amari Davis averaged just over 17 a game. So they can score the ball, but again, we harp on continuity, which is funny coming from a Duke fan, but they don't really have it. So hope for the best, Missouri.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right, that's Missouri. Next up, number 12, South Carolina. Alex, what do you think about South Carolina?
Well, I think Frank Martin's on the hot seat.
Yeah.
They do return Keyshawn Bryant, 14-5. They did get in the transfer portal. They got 4 transfers plus what looks like 3 freshmen, I think, maybe 4. And I think 3-man, we've highlighted it, that they've just kind of fallen apart defensively. But because this is a team that, what was it, 5 years ago made the Final Four, right?
Yeah, it was very recently that they were.
5 years ago, they made the Final Four. PJ Dozier, that whole team, and they've just defensively, they've just fallen apart, and that was their identity for so long. So you've got a team kind of just in this state of rebuild, as a lot of teams in the basement of conferences are. But Bryant's returning production, it's going to fall a lot on him once again. So I don't know how much of that load he can bear without the team really struggling. Probably looking at maybe 4 or 5 wins in conference play, but that's the Gamecocks.
Yeah, again, this is another team that probably won't be very impressive. Defensively, not awesome. They like to run in transition, but analytically speaking, it looks like they take a lot of mid-range shots, which is not. It's the least efficient shot in basketball.
Yep.
What you want are either shots around the rim or 3-pointers, and the majority of their shots, or maybe not the majority, but a higher percentage than you would expect, are from the mid-range, which is just not really where you want to be going with your offense. So yeah, like I don't know. I think they're gonna run, and if they can kind of get back to this, strong defensive philosophy that they've had before, then for me, I think you could probably interchange them with Missouri right now, but I do think their ceiling is probably higher than Missouri because I think on paper their rosters probably look a bit better. I mean, I like Keyshawn Bryant, who's coming back, 14 points a game scorer, and so I think their ceiling is probably higher than Missouri, but I think overall they do suffer from some pretty major issues as far as their play goes. Next up, number 11, Texas A&M. Well, actually, we have these next 2 teams were tied, but we'll talk about Texas A&M. We'll talk about Texas A&M first.
Fantastic.
So Texas A&M, they were in the news fairly recently, like over the summer, maybe, for some, not not great things. Buzz Williams has been suspended by the NCAA for some practice violations that went on in the midst of the pandemic. And he's been suspended 2 games. They've been placed on 2 years probation for these self-reported violations that occurred. So it is. I mean, it's only 2 games. Like, it's nothing. It's nothing crazy. Like, he'll be there for essentially the entire season. And I like what he brings as far as coaching goes. They're bringing in a ton of transfers, though. A ton. So, I mean, yeah, Marcus Williams, I think, is a really solid pickup for them. He's still a sophomore and just scored 14 points a game for Wyoming. And then Tyrese Radford from Virginia Tech was a
excellent pickup.
Huge pickup for them. So
Excellent.
I really like what they have in the backcourt. They bring in Henry Coleman from your Duke Blue Devils.
Happy to talk about him.
Yeah, what do you got on Coleman?
Just a high energy, kind of, he'll do all the dirty work that your scorers, your versatile players probably don't want to do. He can really hit the glass. He's got an incredible frame. Didn't get to see a ton of his scoring just because he kind of fell on the depth chart on what was a horrendous Duke team last season. But I don't know. He's probably, if he starts, he's probably a 7 to 8 points a game guy. He'll probably get to the free throw line just because he hits the offensive glass so hard. And but don't look for a ton of offensive production. It's more going to be on the defensive end and his hustle. Radford and Williams are going to be the go-to guys on that A&M team. On an offense that I will add is not good.
Yeah.
If Missouri's offense is unwatchable, Texas A&M's is barely above that mark.
Yeah. Yeah, historically, like just Buzz Williams' offenses since he came to Texas A&M really have not been great. But
no.
I think that I do think it'll be better this year with the addition of Williams and Radford. I just don't see how it could be
any
at
worse,
the same level or any worse than it's been. So
only ways up.
Yeah, you would like to think so, but at the end of the day, I just don't. There's like you said, this is actually a surprisingly deep conference, and
yes,
there are some rosters that we'll talk about soon that are way more talented than this Texas A&M roster. So that's why I think we both kind of stuck them towards the bottom of the conference. And then this other team that we had, which we flip flopped on these, but Vanderbilt is the next team.
Yes.
The reason I had Vanderbilt above Texas A&M is solely because of Scottie Pippen Jr.
Same.
That's literally the only reason. Like he's potentially a first team All SEC player
of the year.
Potentially player of the year.
Dark horse if Vanderbilt steals some wins.
Yeah, so like he's gonna hard carry the team, and then they added Liam Robbins from Minnesota, and like he's good. Like he's a very nice post player, and so just between those two, I kind of like that they'll get to handle the majority of just the workload, and then everyone else can kind of be this complementary piece and maybe not have to have as like too big of a role to where they kind of start to show some deficiencies. But Vanderbilt still won't be awesome, but when you have Scottie Pippen Jr., who's just gonna, pour in shots, and like I just think that I don't know, maybe they're really bad. Like maybe they're really bad. We had
they're bad. They're bad, but I agree that Pippen will carry them. Here's the challenge though. If Pippen goes out, and I hope he doesn't, but for whatever reason, college basketball is crazy. Injuries can happen. If he goes out for an extended period of time, this team might be worse than Georgia without him.
I would agree with that. I'd agree.
So that's the challenge. Also, I don't know if he can play 40 minutes a game. So when he goes out, who takes that production load? Who creates the offense? Who gets that number one assignment? So Stackhouse is gonna have to figure that out.
Yeah.
And defensively, they're gonna have to be good. So we have them at 10. I think we're probably a little more optimistic than everyone else in the country.
Yeah.
But it's solely because of Pippen, and we need to just keep saying that because this could come back and bite us.
Yeah, exactly. And that's not to say like we're not predicting like, oh, Scottie Pippen's going to get hurt. It's just we're trying to show that this is not after him.
It's tough.
It's not a very promising roster of guys, but with him on the roster, or with him in the lineup, like he will elevate the play of these other guys. So
absolutely.
So ideally for Vanderbilt, he'll be around the whole season, but the workload for him will be very, very high. Next up, why don't you get us started on Ole Miss? We both had them at number 9 in the conference.
Deshaun Ruffin, as a freshman, watched a ton of him, just the clips on YouTube. can score the ball. I think he can lead this offense. He is super undersized for a Division I point guard, but he is quick. He is crafty. He can put him in a high pick and roll. He can just dance with centers. The transfers, I thought they did well. Brooks is he's a solid, our first one of the day. He's a solid pickup for the front court. Brakefield can be a microwave at points. Wasn't consistent enough at Duke to earn enough minutes, but can definitely score the rock if given the opportunity. Fagan too at Georgia, he can score. But again, like they are just better as a whole roster than the aforementioned. I think it is 5 teams. No, 4 teams. Can't count, but yeah, I mean, don't have much beyond that. They are just better, but they will not be able to compete with the likes of even in-state rival Mississippi State in my mind.
I definitely agree with you. And we'll talk about Mississippi State because I'm pretty high on them. But it's going to be interesting to see. I think this team will be fine defensively. I think, Deshaun Ruffin, his size is definitely worrisome combined with the fact that if they're starting him as a freshman point guard like that,
inevitably, yeah,
their offense could look a little rough to start the year. But I think in a perfect world, I think Matthew Morrell steps it up and looks a lot better this year than he did last year. He was supposed to be much better, I think, than 4 points a game and two rebounds a game. Like I think he was supposed to be better than that last year and just kind of underperformed. And so if he has this kind of sophomore resurgence, then that'll be huge for them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. Next, we are talking about Mississippi State. But
wait.
You had them.
Can I change my ranking?
Oh, all right. This is unprecedented. Why? What do you want to change?
No, we can talk about Florida. I've been thinking about Mississippi State. I'd like them to be ahead of Florida.
Okay, wait.
Or wait.
So if they're ahead of Florida.
Wait, did you have LSU low?
Yeah.
This is chaos. Okay.
Yeah. So now
let's just pick one.
Let's just pick one.
See, I'm high on LSU. Okay. Let's just
talk about Mississippi State. Let's talk about Mississippi State.
I'm bad for the viewers.
Yeah.
I thought I had this under control.
It's all good. That could have been fun though. All right, Mississippi State. I am high on this team. I don't think a lot of people are understanding that they went from not anything really to write home about to now they have a lot of very, very talented players on their roster, specifically Garrison Brooks and Rocket Watts. Garrison Brooks comes in from North Carolina and Rocket Watts from Michigan State.
DJ Jeffries
from Memphis too. Yeah, those 3 guys right there, that immediately elevates this team to you have to be looking at them at least middle of the pack in the SEC, I think.
Bubble team.
And
for
the tournament, yeah, this is a team that can really make some things happen if everything comes together. As we said before, when you bring in a lot of transfers, we kind of have yet to see really what that means because the transfer portal became so huge this year. But I kind of think we're just assuming that it's going to be difficult for some of these teams that bring in transfers to really put it all together. Rocket Watts, not the most efficient guy, takes some pretty questionable shots sometimes. But I mean, better than anybody, Alex, that he can light it up. When he's on.
That was a personal attack.
He's on.
I did not appreciate that.
You would know.
Yeah, I do know.
Yeah.
I do know.
Yeah, so I mean he's a good scorer, but we'll see if he can, be a little bit more efficient and get a little bit better with his shot selection. And then they're bringing back Iverson Molinar, who was a 16 points a game scorer as
massive
starting point guard. And that's a guy they're bringing back. That's not even, somebody that's acclimated. And then Tolu Smith with 12 points a game, redshirt junior, eight rebounds a game. Like this team is good. Like I'm very high on this team. That's why I had them. I mean, I guess I'm relatively high. I had them at 7. I don't know.
Yeah. No, but
Because,
still, I think that's convincingly. If you have them at 7, that's convincingly saying they're a tournament team. And
mhm,
also, I just want to say, 4 or 5 weeks ago in our first episode, Karl did have them as a bye in a hypothetical symbol scenario.
yes.
So, yes, he is even 7. That's probably a 11 seed in the tournament.
Mhm.
So,
And the thing is, I came into this expecting like I'm gonna put Mississippi State like pretty high, but then I finally got to looking at the rosters and I was like, I can't put them higher than I can't put them higher than this.
no, just throw them in at 4.
Yeah, right. Like I couldn't do that as much as I wanted to. I was like, these are some very very good teams. So
Yes.
um,
I don't have much to add. Molinar is similarly maybe to Pippen in a sense, a dark horse for first team all SEC, which we'll get to that at the end, but it will be so incredibly hard to pick 5 guys in this conference because it is so individually talented. But big fan of Garrison Brooks, which is crazy for me to say, but him and Tolu Smith, that's going to be a tough front court. I worry somewhat about the depth. Shaquille Moore offers some good production, but beyond that, we need to see guys like Cameron Matthews and Derek Fountain contribute more than a combined 7 points a game off the bench. But yeah, I'm interested to see how DJ Jeffries plays. That was one of those guys that was highly rated coming out of high school, and he's just kind of been a consistent, solid 8 to 10 points a game scorer for Memphis. So if a change in scenery is beneficial, I think that's amazing. Rocket Watts torched Duke last season, then kind of fell off. Needs to be better, especially for a junior now, needs to be better about his shot selection, which even in high school was a question mark. I mean, he played with LaMelo Ball, so I feel like shot selection on that Spire Academy team was not a priority.
yeah.
So, it's a good, solid team. That's describing Mississippi State. And Ben Howland, let's see if he can do it.
Mm-hmm. I think it's safe to say I'd take this starting 5 over any of the ones that we've talked about before. As much as we have concerns over their depth, like
it's just the depth.
It's really just like depth concerns, and then I think we both have question marks just how Rocket Watts kind of fits into this whole equation with his.
Yeah, how many shots he may steal from Molinar? Yeah,
right. So I think ideally he won't be, a number 1, number 2 option like he was with Michigan State. So like he won't really have the opportunity to shoot them out of games. And yeah, I mean the rest of these guys they're great. Like I really like this roster. I like it a lot.
I think the Shaquille Moore battling for a starting position is one of the more interesting headline. It's not a headline, but storylines going into the season. Because if Rocket Watts does hit a slump, Moore can just step in, and Rocket Watts is now the 6th man.
Right.
And you don't know if Moore will give that position back. So
it's true. Cool. Mississippi State. All right. Next up is LSU. You had them at 6, right?
Yeah, I had them at 6.
Yeah, I had them at 8. So you can talk about
higher on the Tigers.
Yeah, talk about LSU.
Darius Days was returning. I think I have to go back and check, but I'm pretty sure I had LSU ranked in my either May or June preseason top 25, which was ambitious.
I'll go look and you keep talking about
Okay. So Darius Days, leading returning scorer, 6'7". I think he'll make a step to probably 14, 15 a game. If he doesn't, then this LSU team could run into some issues. Adam Miller, I was a big fan of him in high school. So I think even though he probably would have started for Illinois this year on a much improved continuity-wise Illinois team, he chose to transfer to LSU, probably 10, 11 points a game score. If he gets hot, he can really score it. Terry Eason or Tari Eason, I'm not sure how to say his first name, just the transfer from Cincinnati. He's a good bench production piece. And then Xavier Pinson. So, like, the backcourt is kind of the question mark because it's 2 transfers. So you don't know how Will Wade is going to work that. You can't rely on Cam Thomas to just score the rock. Javonte Smart is no longer in Baton Rouge, and Trenton Watford's gone too. So those are 3 major losses. So it falls on Darius Days. And Efton Reed is just massive. He is so big.
Yeah.
Great pickup as a freshman. So
yeah, 5-star.
I'm a little higher. I think they're a fringe top 25 team. So I'll let you speak about the Tigers now.
Yeah, you had them. So I just looked. You had them at 24 in
okay.
way too early top 25. So
they will not be. I don't think they'll be ranked, but they're fringe top 25.
Yeah, but I mean, they'll be. We can have like a little honorable mention thing, like received votes or whatever, like something like that. Yeah. LSU. I don't really have a ton to add, honestly. I think Efton Reed is gonna just feast. Like, I think he's gonna be amazing. This front court is really nice.
A field day.
Yeah, he's gonna be really good. I'm curious to see. Not that their success or failure necessarily hinges on this, but I'm curious to see what Sharif O'Neal looks like. To be honest,
yes. I'm just excited. Like, we're finally get to see it.
Yeah, because he transferred from UCLA last year, but then he ran into some health issues with heart, was it like heart problems?
It was open heart surgery.
Oh, well, yeah.
That's major. That's a major issue.
Yeah, that's a major issue. So, was sidelined pretty much. And obviously that's a serious concern when, cardiovascular health is pretty important for basketball. And when you're having open heart surgery, concern. But so
he's now 4 years ago.
He's kind of like a, interesting little kind of X factor where we don't really know. We haven't really seen him really in college, and he was really good in high school, and so I don't know. I'd like to see what he brings to this team, and if he's able to provide a ton of minutes or I'm really just curious. It doesn't really have anything to do with their play necessarily, but I'm interested to see what that looks like.
Yes.
Yeah, but you touched on it. I do think the reason I was a little lower on them is because I guess just in the games that I watched of them last year, Cam Thomas
bailed them out.
Hard carried this team. He was disgusting. First round pick to the Brooklyn Nets, bucket getter. Just that's really all he was. That was my whole scouting report on him was he doesn't play defense.
He can score.
He doesn't pass. He doesn't rebound. He doesn't do anything. All he does is score. And it's cool to have a guy in college basketball. It's fun to have a guy like that who that's it. That's all they do. But he, I think, averaged 23.
He's got a weird form, but I mean, from distance, he's so good.
Yeah, I mean, and just attacking downhill, he's awesome. But yeah, they don't have him. Is the point? No. They don't have him, and I do like Adam Miller. And they're bringing in Xavier Pinson, which is cool too. But I think, it's a lot of interesting pieces that we'll see how they all work together. But I think I'm probably just a little bit lower on their ceiling than most people are. But yeah, there's a lot of things with this LSU team that I'm very curious about. I mean, this was an eight seed in the tournament last year, and I think they'll probably end up right around that range again.
Yeah,
if I had to guess, kind of early, but. Yeah, we'll see. This could be a team that finishes 4th or 5th, and I wouldn't be I don't know. I wouldn't be super shocked, but we'll see. Next up, Florida. I had them at 6. You had them at 7.
I'll move them to 8.
Really?
Yeah.
And move who in to replace
Mississippi State to 7.
Okay, so I guess they're all tied now. Is that how that works?
That works.
Maybe. Okay. Well. We'll see. The big thing, I think the biggest thing for Florida moving like into this season is whether Keontae Johnson can play.
Yes.
I think that's literally, I think their season basically hinges on it. Not to say like, I mean, they won a game in the tournament last year, and Colin Castleton is back, and he's great. Originally from transferred from Michigan. They bring back Tyree Appleby, and they bring back guys who like contributed to that tournament team. Losing Trey Mann, don't love that. I really liked Trey Mann coming into the draft, and so losing him I think is a big deal. But I think Castleton really steps it up this year. But a lot of their, I think this was probably something that Thurman we've touched on, but all the guys that are transferring in are coming from teams that were awful.
Yes.
And so I don't know that, maybe that's a little unfair to be like, well, the team was bad, therefore the players are really bad, but it's not,
they were the go-to guys on bad teams.
Yeah. So it's not like, it's not super promising. I don't think, but bringing in Fleming from Charleston Southern, 20 points a game, seven rebounds a game. Like that's interesting. As a
6'4" guard.
Yeah. So I'm very interested to see like how big of a role he gets with Florida.
Yeah.
Especially because they're returning guys like Appleby and so I'm interested to see like what kind of role he carves out for himself. But at the end of the day, for me, it comes down to Keontae Johnson and whether or not he's able to play. Because after we just talked about someone who had, some health
cardiac event.
Yeah, so he
collapsed.
Yeah, he collapsed on the floor, for those of you who remember that last year. I think an article went out about it on Vendetta that I think like Emma Brown wrote or something. I don't know, but
before my time.
Yeah, it was scary situation, and he's their best player. So now it kind of falls to the returning guys like Castleton to really like, to be the guy, and he was able to do that last year. Like in the tournament, like Castleton was nasty in their first round game. Trying to think of who they played. They were a 7 or a 10 maybe.
I think they were the 7.
There was 7, and I totally forget who they played. But
I'll find it out.
Popped off.
They played Virginia Tech.
Oh yeah, okay.
And then they lost to Oral Roberts.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, that's great. I love that. Yeah, Oral Roberts was a lot of fun last year. But anyway, do you have any additional thoughts on Florida?
Yes, I do. So I want to say this now. So in September, late September, I think it was 20 days ago, they did the AP wrote that Keontae Johnson has not been cleared yet by medical staff, which means he's definitely not going to be cleared before the season starts in my mind. And I just want to say this. I get how important he is, how integral he is to that Gators roster. I don't want him rushing back. He collapsed on the court and had he wanted to cardiac, like we saw it at the Euros with Christian Eriksen. I think we need to start we obviously do prioritize it. It's not a joking matter, but we don't need to rush the preseason player of the year last season back just because they need him. If he does come back and just pray to God that nothing happens, they're probably a top 4 team in the SEC. But just, I mean, Coach Mike White said that right now he's still just kind of coaching from the sidelines, that he's a big time help, that there's no change in status, but that he's a very much big part to what they're doing. So just don't rush, please, Mike White, don't rush him back. I don't think you would, but just for his safety. But yeah, beyond that, I think you hit everything. Transfer wise, in the backcourt too, I think McKissick, his production will be interesting from Kansas City, 17.2, just to see who he goes with between Marion Jones, Brandon McKissick, and Philandris Fleming, just to see who he kind of rolls with alongside Appleby. But depth-wise, I'm not as concerned, especially CJ Felder in the front court. They're good 1 through 8. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's the
Uh,
Gators.
yeah. So I mean, they're pretty deep, and I would just second, like, please do not rush back Keontae Johnson, especially because, you know, COVID is still going on. Like, it's still
Yes.
around, and like it disproportionately affects people who have
Pre-existing conditions.
pre-existing conditions, and so for Keontae Johnson to just be like involved in like traveling and like if he gets COVID, like that would not, regardless of whatever everyone's feelings are about, COVID or whatever. I get that it's pretty political at this point, but it would not be good for him to, you know, rush back and then also like be risking like some other problems. So yeah, but get better soon, Keontae.
Yep.
We want you back, but we want you to be safe also.
Yes.
All right, moving on to our top five in the SEC. These were the same, all of them, exactly the same for us. So
Love to see it.
you love to see that. First up, Auburn. All I really have on Auburn is like they had a postseason ban last year, and so they were super unmotivated to really do anything. Like they just kind of gave Sharif Cooper the ball and said, "Go have fun." But I mean, this year they have a very very good roster. Unfortunately, Alan Flanagan is hurt
Achilles.
and will I think be out for the season.
No. Well, from what maybe this season injury,
Yeah.
I thought it was like 12 weeks.
Oh no, you're right. It is like 12 weeks, and so that kind of puts him right back into like in the middle of conference play.
Which is hope he might be back for. I mean, I would wind him in late, so like February, March, but
Mhm. Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
even if you bring it, that's the
12 to
thing.
14 weeks.
Even if you bring him back right when you're able to, he's not going to be, 100%, 14 points a game, Alan Flanagan. So
It's also his right Achilles, and I think he's a lefty. So every time he launches, he's launching off of his right foot. So that's just like a little thing, just basketball wise, when he's attacking, getting to the rim, he's more comfortable, obviously, going up with his left. It's just something to keep an eye on
mhm.
because he was probably a preseason All SEC team member. It's just something, yeah.
Yeah. So they bring in a few transfers who I all think will be pretty good for them. Walker Kessler from North Carolina, who was I believe he's a 5-star, and then
He was 13th in the country.
didn't really feature very much at North Carolina, and so
Did towards the end of the season, like you could kind of see it, which is what boosts his transfer stock.
mhm.
And then I think he kind of just got wind of the Roy Williams retirement, and he was probably going to have to play. He was going to be behind Baycott again this season. Hubert Davis is going in with the 4 out, 1 in, which means he would have been the second center off the bench. Yeah.
Mhm.
So now he's at Auburn.
Yeah, but so yeah, he kind of, wanted greener pastures and didn't really like, I guess, the role that he had in North Carolina. So he left and he's with Auburn now. Jabari Smith,
Oh,
I think, you know what? I'll say it now because I mean we'll talk about it later, but he's my pick for freshman of the year.
I'm going to be honest. I don't know how to pick freshman of the year, but we'll talk about that later.
Yeah. I mean, I think
It is so hard.
the other big one is at Tennessee, but I
Yeah.
I'm picking Jabari Smith for
He's complete.
freshman
Like
of the
he is
year.
a complete forward.
Oh, he's awesome. He's gonna be so good.
He is a complete forward.
Yeah. Probably a lottery pick too.
He has to be a lottery pick.
I would think
Why
so.
wouldn't
Yeah.
why wouldn't he be?
Unless something like crazy happens, but yeah, should be a lottery pick. We have, we'll do our like mock draft and scouting report stuff like a
Yeah.
little later in the season, but for right now, I would put him squarely in the lottery, and I think he's going to be freshman of the year, like I said. And then their backcourt, they bring in Wendell Green from Eastern Kentucky,
Mhm.
really good scorer, like really complete guard. It's only sophomore, but he can score the ball. He can really, he can pass. He can play defense. Like, so I like that. And then KD Johnson scored 13 a game for Georgia, but we've talked about how Georgia's kind of like perennially not good, and so you can take that, for what you want. Like, he scored 13 points a game for a really bad team. So, but, you have to be talented to score 13 points. It might actually be better that, like, he scored that many for a bad team, because if you're a go-to guy on a bad team, like, you're the one that's getting keyed in on all the time. So, I don't know. There's a couple different ways I guess you could take that, but just on paper, it looks good.
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit everything. Jabari Smith can score at all three levels, gets to the rim, can really shoot the ball, which for a 6'10" big man is beyond impressive. Will, with Flanagan out, probably number one option. We'll see like how it shakes out, but you're probably 4 out, 1 in. Let Kessler just kind of work in the post. Interested to see who kind of slots into that wing role with Flanagan's absence. Don't know if it's going to be Devin Cambridge. He could roll small, and so Zep Jasper is probably your backup point guard, transfer from Charleston. However, you do have size, so Smith and Kessler's length can accommodate for any attacks that may happen from a wing, but I do think it's probably Cambridge or Jalen Williams that probably slots in at that wing role for now. But yeah, beyond that, you hit it with Wendell Green and Katie Johnson. That's your backcourt. Kessler, we're now going to get to see what all the hype's about, and I think it's there. So, yeah.
Yeah. It's and then if having Cambridge and Williams, I have to sneeze. Wow. Okay. We're good. Yeah, like Cambridge and Williams, like this is a very deep team with a lot of guys that could start, I think, in other places. And so, yeah, I like what Auburn has as far as, they have athletes, they have guys who can score, they can play they play a little bit of defense, and Bruce Pearl is a great coach who, brought this team to the Elite Eight a couple years ago, right? Final Four? Elite Eight.
Elite Eight. No, Final Four.
Was
right?
it Final
No.
Four? Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a Final Four team as a 5 seed, because they beat Carolina and then.
Yeah. They lost to Virginia, right? Yes, they did. Mamadi Diakite.
Yes. That's
the little floater runner.
Right. Yeah, that was
send it to overtime.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that
would have won.
That was with did they have Bruce Brown? Is that who they had? And
yeah, I think so.
Okay, I don't know, but anyway, Bruce Pearl's been there, done that. He's been there before, and so yeah, we trust what he can do with this team.
Guide him back.
Ride him, yes sir. More Eagle, baby. Number 4, Tennessee Volunteers. In the news recently for their fans being not the best at football games, but as far as basketball goes, there's
Kennedy
a lot to
Chandler.
like. There's a lot to like. Yeah, give me talk to me.
Kennedy Chandler.
Talk to me.
Love Kennedy Chandler. Wanted him at Duke, but that's okay. Dude he is the best freshman floor general in the country. Not afraid to say that. I would take him over Hunter Salas and others. He is so smooth. Just watching him operate at Sunrise Christian last year. He's so good. Just on the ball. Just put him in a pick and roll and just let him work. Great court vision. Can score the ball when necessary. With his production, definitely could be freshman of the year, but there are a ton of really talented freshmen in the SEC, which we'll get to. Brandon Huntley Hatfield, freshman, reclassed, which is always tough. So now he's 17, getting ready to play SEC basketball. Great size at IMG. So he's a good production front court production piece. Jonas Adu too. And then Josiah Jordan James and John Fulkerson comprise your front court. So I'll let you. Fulkerson has to be 12 plus points games though. Has to be.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
So entering the beginning of last year, I remember people were super high on Tennessee because they had a really nice roster, but then, COVID kind of screwed some stuff up and they had to take some time off, and, they weren't really able to get into a rhythm that allowed them to truly hit their ceiling. And so they lose Jaden Springer and Keon Johnson, who are both they're, freshman guards from last year to the NBA. But replacing them with, Kennedy Chandler is not, I think they might be better off, to be honest with you, because for as good as, Springer and Johnson are, like, I think Chandler is much better than them, and I would definitely take him over either of them. And then I think Fulkerson, like, for them to really hit their ceiling, I do think he has to be like 12, 13 points a game, or else I don't really know.
It'll be tough
what this team looks like. Like, this is a roster that I think their floor is pretty solid. Like, I don't think with the guys that they have that they can really do any worse than like sixth or like sixth probably.
They're so deep.
But they're deep, and there are guys who can really step up to score or step up to, guard the best guy. Like, they have athletes for sure. And but as far as, it kind of just depends whether you buy into their ceiling. Like, I think this is a team where that's true more so than most of the other ones, as far as whether you buy in on, what Chandler looks like right away, what Justin Powell, the Auburn transfer, what he looks like. He was an 11, 6, and 4 guy last year. And so, like, that's a really nice pickup for them. But yeah, I think fourth is probably fair for them. Some places have them, like, I've seen some rankings that I'm sure they're different now, but some places had them as like a top 10, top 15 team in the country entering this season.
So like, here's the issue, is that any other normal year where we didn't have just such an influx of transfers plus guys coming back who normally wouldn't, this is a team that probably is entering the season top 12 in the country. But now you're looking at, and we've talked about it on past episodes, but you're looking at what is the deepest pool of teams in my lifetime. You've got probably 14 teams that legitimately can cut down the nets in March. So Tennessee would be one of those teams that you're like, oh, it's a dark horse team for a national champion. And you could say that this year, but they'll be like 21st in the country come preseason rankings. Like, that's the tricky part.
Yeah. Cool. Next up, we got number 3, Arkansas. Must bust, baby. All aboard the must bust. I loved this team last year. They were so much fun. Moses Moody was awesome. Give me your thoughts, just your initial thoughts on Arkansas, because we both had them at 3, and I don't know that a lot of places would put them at 3. Maybe I'm wrong. I obviously haven't seen everywhere, but you want to talk about Musselman's recruiting?
I did. Which one do you want me to talk about first? I can let you talk about like the team as a whole, because you seemed really excited.
Okay. Yeah, I'll talk about the team, and then you can give me your thoughts and then talk about just recruiting, because also you're the recruiting guy. I'm not.
I like the freshmen. Yeah.
Yeah. So transfer wise, it's an interesting group. It's not like, they're bringing in these, like, guys from the top schools that are now suddenly on Arkansas. Like, he has Tony from Pitt, he has Likes from Miami. But I think the Tony edition is pretty underrated. I think he's going to be really good. And then we've talked about undersized guards. Likes is listed at 5'7", but still managed to score 15 points a game in the ACC.
Before injury.
What?
Before injury. He went down.
Was he injured? See, I didn't even know that.
Yeah, I think he was.
Okay. Yeah, 4 rebounds a game at 5'7", 5 assists a game. So what do you know what the nature of his injury was? Because
he may have been injured last year, but no, I mean, he's just hold on, I'll find it. You keep talking.
Okay. Yeah, but we've, and you'll talk more about just sort of what Musselman brings to the table, but as far as coaching goes, I love what he
Gotta love him.
he's awesome. Like there's this great like video of him. It was like after a practice or like before a game where he has his team in the locker room and he's like look under your chairs, and they like look under their chairs and there's like craft singles like taped underneath their chairs, and he's like, everyone's like, what in the world? And he's like, don't eat the cheese that last game's performance carries over to this one or something, and everyone's like, what in the world? Like this doesn't make any sense. But
it's amazing.
he's just a fun coach, and he knows how to win. And like I don't think many people expected them to be awesome last year really, but they were great. Like they were a very, very fun team, and so I trust him as far as bringing together, tying together like the freshmen and the returners and the transfers, like, and making them just a cohesive unit that plays well together. And they got a lot of athletes. They have guys who can handle the ball. They have guys who can shoot. Like I think this is a deep team. This will be a fun team to watch. And definitely, I think a tournament threat, just as they were last year. Had a scare against Colgate, but
yeah, they'll be fun.
They'll be fun. Yeah. So talk to me about Musselman.
Likes ankle injury last year that sidelined him.
Okay.
So he's lightning quick. Don't know how much. I doubt it hobbles him this season because it was just an ankle injury. I don't think it broke or anything. But lightning quick. He's a nightmare to guard, regardless of your size, regardless of your quickness. Just nightmare. I don't know if you touched on Stanley Amude.
No, I didn't.
Massive pickup, I think, for like that wing role. Can score
like
the rock.
21
at South Dakota.
Oh man.
21 a game. 21 and 7. 21 and 7. So is that going to translate? We'll see. They're also deep. Like they are deep. Again, one of those teams that if someone's having an off night, someone else can pick up the load, which is why I think we have them at 3.
Mm-hmm.
But just to touch on next year's outlook for Arkansas quickly, Nick Smith and Jordan Walsh, massive pickups for the Muss Bus. Nick Smith was on campus on Saturday. I don't know if you saw this. There's an amazing clip of him playing some like frat guys at Arkansas.
I saw that.
Hilarious.
Yeah.
Really puts into perspective what a top 6 player in the country as a 18-year-old looks like against a bunch of 5'9" white guys. But Eric Musselman now has like a top 3 recruiting class. And if I had told Arkansas fans that they'd be a basketball school 3 years ago, don't think they'd believe me.
Yeah.
But they are competing with Duke and Kentucky on the national recruiting stage. It is awesome to see. But yes, Eric Musselman, if you're watching this, come on the show.
Oh,
if you're watching this, if you're watching this 5 months from now, just come on the show anyway.
If you watch this 5 years from now, like we want you on the show. Like we don't.
It doesn't matter.
We don't really care. I'm glad you talked about recruiting because like I don't follow it really as much as you do, but I watched like Jordan Walsh tape like after you had done the article, and I was like, this guy's nasty. Like
he is.
He's really nasty. Like so as far as like they'll be fine this year. I don't know that they have like the pure just talent to really get them over the top and compete for a championship. But in future years, this team's going to be better. Like we'll be looking at them as a team we might pick them to win the SEC
next year in a normal year. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, and it's going to be kind of them in Kentucky, I think, for the next like couple years, but
yeah,
they're going to be
Alabama.
Alabama. True. Yeah. For the next,
which we'll talk about.
Couple years.
I think that's a great segue.
That's a good segue because we're talking about Alabama next. I opened on Arkansas, so you can talk about Alabama.
Charles Bediako, I think he's kind of gotten maybe a little bit lost in the national coverage of Alabama. just because of their amazing backcourt. But that was an exceptional freshman pickup for the front court. He is 7 foot, just your prototypical pound of glass, good on the interior, can score it, put him in a pick and roll, he'll dive, that kind of thing. And in a pick and roll, Javon Quinterly. It'll be exciting.
Yep.
Quinterly.
Yep.
A lot of people's preseason player of the year picks.
Mm-hmm.
Good returner, 13 and 3 a game. Needs to probably pick it up in the playmaking department. Jadon Shackelford's return may have been the best thing this offseason.
Huge for them.
Huge. 14 a game, can score it. JD Davison, I don't think he's getting enough talk for player of the year. Not player of the year, freshman player of the year. The guy can score the rock. He is a high flyer. Noah Gurley, 3 Weave has him coming off the bench. Don't know if he'd actually come off the bench, but another really solid from Furman. Had the likes of like Duke recruiting him in the offseason, trying to get him to come. Chose Nate Oates in Alabama. We've seen Nate Oates can coach. Keon Ellis is probably your 6th man. This is a good Alabama team.
Their backcourt was awesome last year, and it's still
better.
You think it's better? You think it's?
I may have said that too quickly.
What?
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
I may have said that too quickly.
Well, I don't know. I mean, losing, Josh Primo, and
he went early. That's a separate conversation.
I'm not gonna lie, I hated that. I really didn't like it. I thought it was a horrible draft pick for the Spurs. I think he really could have benefited from having another year. I didn't really understand it, but he saw the dollar signs and said, "Get me out of here."
Shout out Alex Chick.
Shout out Alex Chick. Hope that pick works out for your team, but we'll see. I don't know. It's hard for me to talk about Alabama really objectively because after watching them just absolutely throttle Maryland in the tournament last year, like I don't really like to talk about that. I think they hit conservative estimate, like, I don't know, 1 million 3-pointers. Like, it was crazy how many threes this team took and made in that game.
It was Auburn-esque from like 2-3 years ago against North Carolina. It was all like that. Yeah.
Yeah, it was. They just put on an offensive clinic, but that just kind of goes to show that that's what this team is. Like, their offense, when it's in rhythm and they're hitting shots, it's going to be very, very difficult to beat them. Because they also have, they have a good enough defense to where, like, you're not really gonna, if they're not hitting as many shots, like, it's not like it's a given that you're just gonna, score points on them. So, I mean, yeah, like we've said with some of these other teams, they're deep. They have really, like, a really high talent level, and Nate Oates really showed that he's like a premier coach. So I don't know if you have any final thoughts on Alabama, but we can move on.
No, I think that hit it all.
Okay, cool. All right, Kentucky.
Oh.
Number one. We're picking them both. We're both picking them number 1 team in the conference. Another team with a fair amount of turnover, but that's kind of what you expect year to year with Kentucky, is that it's just going to be a different group of guys every year. So
they're so much better.
And that's the thing too, is like last year was such a disappointment. Last year was like they had BJ Boston, and he wasn't as good as I think people expected him to be. He really underperformed. Terrence Clark, rest in peace, but he also wasn't as good as I think people expected him to be. So it was just across the board a lot of underperforming, and so they missed the tournament. Like, really, really rough year for Cal and his guys. But entering this year,
don't worry, Big Blue Nation.
Yeah, like what do you see when you're looking at this roster? Like, what jumps out to you?
Kellen Grady immediately jumps off the page, and maybe it's because being from like Charlotte, North Carolina, I had the opportunity to go see him play at Davidson. It's a 40-minute drive from me.
Mm-hmm.
guys an absolute bucket can go and score the rock. So it's kind of like you had Davion Mintz last year kind of pick up that production in the backcourt. And there were times he kind of floated in and out of games. You don't worry about that with Kellen Grady. Ty Washington as a freshman just can absolutely shoot. So you're just spreading out defenses with Washington and Grady, who are elite shooters. Severe Wheeler can get to the hole. He can shoot whatever you want him to do. He can do. You're adding CJ Frederick from Iowa, another shooter, which I don't think Kentucky is I would describe them almost as your slasher kind of freshman offense. And this year they're just going to spread you out and just rain threes down. Keon Brooks, I think all reports indicate he's going to have a leap this year. We've been kind of waiting for that leap, but I think it's this year. Oscar Tshiebwe, massive front court pickup.
Yeah.
Damian Collins too, just a really good freshman that'll come off the bench. Mintz, Toppin, Dante Allen, Bryce Hopkins, Lance Ware. Those are your bottom 5 on the bench, and they can all produce. So you have 12 guys that could conceivably go get you at least 10 points a game on any given night. That is unheard of depth-wise in the country.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they go from this team that was really not that good to this is our unanimous pick for top finisher in the SEC. And the Tshiebwe pickup to me is huge because, like you said, this is a team that's going to spread you out. They're going to shoot the ball, and that just gives him so much more room to work down low. If you want to go inside, so I think he's going to have maybe not a season that really jumps out statistics wise, but I think his impact will really be felt and be just immense for this team. But yeah, Davion Mintz, having him, he's projected to come off the bench, but we'll see. I could potentially see him finding a starting role, especially as a senior. But just to have these guys who you're having double-digit scorers who are potentially coming off the bench, and there's only so many teams in the country that you can say that for. I mean, the one that comes to mind immediately is Texas, but it's just not their depth is what's gonna, it's a combination of their depth and just their talent level. They're both super high, and I love Ty Washington as a shooter, as a scorer. I think he's gonna be great. Having Keon Brooks back is huge. Like you said, the Kellen Grady transfer. There's just so much to like with this team, and Big Blue Nation does not have to worry because they will be much improved.
And they'll work it out too. Any inevitable struggles that you face in the off season, you have guys that'll bail you out because they've played for 3-4 years, which is different than Kentucky's have passed.
Yeah.
Which is also why I think we'll have Duke ranked ahead of Kentucky. Maybe not in our rankings, in top 25. However, if I'm a betting man, and this pains me to say it, I would take the Kentucky money line against Duke in that Champions Classic game, just because of Kentucky's returning guys who have played at the Division I level versus you're not going to rely so heavily on freshmen.
Yeah. And we can also just mention future outlook for Kentucky. After last season, people were like, "Oh, is Cal lost a step?"
No, he's fine.
No, he's fine. The
recruiting too. We're good.
Recruits that these guys are bringing,
you're good.
Very, very good.
You're fine.
They're going to be okay. It's not.
Yeah, Shaden Sharp. Yeah, next year.
Shaden Sharp. Yeah, Zion Williamson-esque season for Shaden Sharp for sure.
No.
Yeah. Yeah, but rest assured, Kentucky fans, you guys will be right back in the mix this year. Okay, let's wrap it up with first team and award predictions and all that stuff, and then close it out. Okay.
I touched on it at the beginning. There are so many individual talents in this conference that this is nearly impossible.
Yeah. It's going to be, it's not going to be.
The Big Ten is deep, but there is a clear cut 5 guys that are better than everyone else.
Mm-hmm.
This is not the case.
Right. Yeah. It's, I mean, Scottie Pippen Jr., first team.
Yeah.
right? Okay. I'd say Quinterly. Quinterly first team.
Mhm.
Okay, so that's 2. Thoughts on putting Kennedy Chandler in the first team?
I don't mind it.
Okay.
Or Iverson Molinar.
Yes, actually, no, I like that better. Molinar. Okay, now here's another freshman question. Thoughts on Jabari Smith first team?
I mean, he's your freshman of the year, so that's implying that you would thus give him what, like in 17-8 season?
I guess. Maybe
Just
that's
throwing out numbers.
maybe that's set bar a little high, but like
Okay, so 14-8.
yeah.
Okay. So do you think that's more than Castleton?
Oh,
Do you
I
think
think
it's
it'll
more
at
than
least be close. I think they'll be the 2. I think it'll be one of them.
Again,
I think it'll be one of them.
here's you have more of a problem with it. I'll put in all 5 guards for a first team. I don't care. I'm not lining it up against anybody. I'm just giving you the 5 best players. Like
That's fair. Yeah,
I have no problem.
Okay.
But
That's a fair argument.
I'd go Molinar for Mississippi State, Quinterly, Alabama, Pippen Jr., Vanderbilt. I'd go Kellen Grady, Kentucky. And I'll go Jabari Smith, Auburn, with Castleton sitting in there at 6.
Okay. I'm like you said, there's so many individual talents in this conference that like you could really give me any team of 5 guys and I'd be like, yes, like that's an all conference first team.
Darius Days, LSU, Toshibwe, Kessler,
Yeah,
Jordan James, Tennessee. Those are all front court guys.
Right.
Like,
and that's the thing is like we'll see how it all works out. Like maybe,
Harrison Brooks might not make it all SEC team. That's crazy.
Yeah. This is going to be such a fun conference to watch this year. I'm really looking forward to it. Do you have a pick for player of the year?
I'm debating between Quinterly and Grady. So we have Kentucky winning the conference. I'll go Grady.
Okay, I'd agree with you. I think Grady. And then
which means it'll be Quinterly because
right. Yeah, the Jimmer Range curse is
we're starting a Jimmer Range curse.
Yeah. And then freshman of the year, I've already said I think it's Jabari Smith. As much as I love Kennedy Chandler, I feel like he's like the consensus pick, and I don't want to be like just a sheep, so I'm picking Jabari Smith.
No, I think I've seen Ty Washington as a freshman pick. I've seen Chandler, Washington, and Jabari Smith.
Okay.
So, I had Jabari Smith in first team, so I have to go with Smith.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Kennedy Chandler 2, Washington 3. There's like 5 freshmen that can conceivably win it.
Yeah, and that's like we've thrown out so many names, and what's crazy is like you could throw out 10 names to fill 5 spots, and we could still be wrong about any one of them. You know what I mean? Like there could be a guy. If we name 10 guys, there could be a guy we didn't name that makes first team because that's just how talented this team or this conference is.
I'm the least confident about this prediction than I have been about any other conference.
Yeah, to the point where like we're not even really able to make a prediction. We're like, oh, we could see these 3 guys like in this spot.
Well, you just saw me sit here for like 15 seconds debating the player of the year pick, and in the ACC, I just immediately went ACC and the Big Ten. I know.
Yeah. So all that to say, I'm looking forward to watching some SEC basketball this year. That's your conference preview. That's going to do it for us. If you liked what you saw, be sure to follow us on Twitter at Jim Range Pod. We recap we post predictions on there. We post our articles. We post just other like random fun stuff on there. Polls, the whole 9. So go follow us on Twitter. Make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel, Spendetta Sports Media. You can read our written articles on the site. I don't know if am I missing anything? I don't think so.
YouTube, Twitch.
Yeah, follow Twitch. Eventually, there will be reasons for me and Alex to go live on Twitch to talk about things.
Maybe some reactions for like Duke Maryland games.
Oh yeah, so we could
Live reactions.
there's going to be we have
Actually,
a lot of
wait.
options for content in the future. And so to see
I
all
don't,
of that,
I don't know.
just Twitter, YouTube, Twitch, just follow all of them and you won't miss anything from us.
And follow us individually.
Yeah.
I need my followers to go up.
Yeah. Follow us individually. So follow at Cervantes P. Alex. I'm at Karl Heiser 17.
All lowercase.
All lowercase. Yep. So thank you guys for tuning in, whether that's on Spotify.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, follow us on Spotify. But anyway, thank you guys for tuning in, whether it be YouTube or Spotify. That's going to do it for me. That's going to do it for Alex. We will see you guys next time.